I was called the disappointment who delivers packages. That's not a figure of speech. That's what my uncle actually said, in front of everyone over dinner. My name's Erin James. I'm 34. I live in a small rental outside Sacramento and drive a beat-up gray Honda that rattles every time it hits a pothole. I've been a delivery driver for over 6 years, first with Amazon Flex, then DoorDash, then private freight contracts. It's not glamorous. It's not what I went to school for, but it's what kept me alive when my world fell apart. Mom passed when I was 28. She had no savings, no insurance, and I was left with funeral debt, a broken lease, and an inbox full of rejections from companies who really appreciated my interest. I used to sit outside the hospital parking lot after her chemo sessions, trying to make $40 delivering groceries in time to cover her meds. So no, Uncle Dean, I didn't exactly choose this life, but it chose me, and I showed up every damn day. Last Saturday was my grandfather's 60th birthday. The whole family was there. Uncles in country clubs, cousins in startups, aunts with Chanel bags and passive-aggressive smiles. I showed up after a full shift, still in my delivery uniform. No time to change. The house was massive. The kind with crown molding, double ovens, and photos of Italy blown up on canvas. Everyone was drinking rosé and eating sea bass on real silverware. I sat near the end of the table, away from the spotlight, picking at salad with my plastic fork. That's when it happened. "So, Erin," Uncle Dean said, loud enough for the neighbors to hear, "still delivering packages?" A few people chuckled. I smiled politely. "You know," he continued, swirling his wine like a caricature, "your mom would roll in her grave if she saw you in that uniform." Someone gasped. Someone else laughed. My throat tightened, but I kept my hands steady. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the whole damn wine glass across the room. But I didn't. I just said, "Well, at least I show up where I'm needed." He raised an eyebrow. "Doing what? Running errands for tech bros?" That part hurt more than I expected, because he didn't know. None of them did. I wasn't just delivering boxes anymore. Over the last 5 years, I'd built a small but growing logistics backend. I'd learned routes, delivery windows, warehouse bottlenecks, fleet maintenance, all from inside the truck. Then I started hiring, then leasing vans, then contracting out rural last-mile delivery when big firms didn't want to touch it. What started as survival had become something much bigger, but I never told anyone. I wore that uniform like armor. Let them think what they wanted. The kicker? Last quarter, my LLC, Urban Loop Logistics, secured a silent acquisition of a distressed distribution firm. The same one Dean just sunk over $2 million into, trying to revolutionize small parcel fulfillment. He was so busy talking about changing the game that he didn't see who was already on the board. But sitting there that night, with sea bass on fine china and someone's kid practicing violin upstairs, I realized something. They'd never see me coming. My cousin Jenna leaned across the table. "You still living out by the train tracks?" "Sure am," I said. "That must be rough," she said, not even hiding the condescension. I smiled because she didn't know the truth. The apartment by the train tracks is paid in full by Urban Loop. And the warehouse 2 blocks down? Also mine. "You know," Uncle Dean chimed back in, "you should really think about getting a real job. You're pushing 35. I stood up, slow and calm. "I'm gonna head out. Early shift tomorrow." "Another Walmart run?" He laughed. I didn't answer. I just picked up my bag and left. The next morning, my phone buzzed. "Dean. Hey, kiddo. Need your help. This new lady at the distribution firm is freezing contracts. Claims she has full authority. Might need you to reach out, grease the wheels." I stared at the message, heart pounding. That lady he was panicking about? Was me. I stared at Dean's message like my phone had just grown teeth. "Need your help. This new lady at the distribution firm is freezing contracts. Might need you to reach out." The new lady, huh? Funny. They used to know the exact way I cut my bangs. Now I wasn't even worth recognizing because I didn't play the game the way they expected. I set my phone down and looked back at the invoice reports on my laptop. The contracts he was whining about? They were tied to a logistics company run by his wife, a shady little operation I'd flagged months ago for overcharging rural delivery clients. Back when I was still doing drop-offs myself, that same company stiffed me out of nearly $800 and never returned my calls. I remembered. Every dollar, every name. And now every one of them was about to face me at full volume. That afternoon, I headed into the Urban Loop office. Nothing fancy, just a bright third-floor space over a used bookstore. But it was mine, and it ran efficiently. Brandon, our ops lead, handed me a folder the second I walked in. Dean's firm submitted another batch of flagged invoices. Third month in a row, route data doesn't match what they're billing. I flipped through it. Duplicate stops, inflated mileage. One driver listed on a shift I knew for a fact had quit last fall. "Freeze the contracts," I said. "You sure?" Brandon asked. "Dean's family." "Exactly," I said. "That's why we do it right." The next day, Dean called. His tone was all sugar. "Aaron, sweetheart, I hear you've got some pullover at Urban Loop these days?" "Something like that," I said. Good, good. You always were sharp with numbers." I didn't say anything. "Listen, there's been some confusion with a few of our contracts. Any chance you could talk to whoever's running things? Smooth it over?" I swallowed the lump in my throat and said, "I'll bring it up at our next board meeting." He laughed, smug. Atta girl. 3 nights later, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake thinking about Mom. She worked part-time as a bookkeeper for a bakery. She never had a retirement account or health insurance. When she got sick, it was just me and a GoFundMe page that barely covered her meds. Dean and the rest sent flowers. That was it. No one offered to help. They just kept throwing parties with open bars and pretending like I'd made bad life choices. I remembered sitting by her hospice bed, whispering, "I promise I'll make something real. For both of us." And now I was. Monday morning, Dean sent another email. Subject line, "Urgent, contract suspensions." I didn't open it. Instead, I called our legal team. "We ready if this turns into a fight?" I asked. "Absolutely." One of the attorneys said, "All the data's logged. Internal audit's clean." I nodded. This wasn't about petty revenge. This was about showing them I was never weak. I was just building something they couldn't even see. That afternoon, I finally called Dean back. "About those contracts," I said. "We're putting them under review pending a third-party audit." There was a pause. "Audit?" he repeated. "Why?" "We're seeing signs of serious invoice manipulation. Could be fraud." Silence. Then, "Who the hell's in charge over there?" I smiled. Slow. "I am." They didn't even recognize me when I walked in. Not Dean. Not Jenna. Not Aunt Lila with her iced blonde curls and pearl sunglasses balanced on her head like a tiara. They were all there, gathered at the quarterly stakeholder meeting of the new logistics company they'd just poured capital into. And I was the nobody who froze their contracts. Except I wasn't nobody. Not today. Today, I was Aaron James, CEO and founder of Urban Loop Logistics. The woman they thought was running deliveries from her car was now running the room. I walked in wearing a navy suit. Not flashy, but sharp. Practical. Quiet strength. My hair was pulled back. No makeup. No show. And still, I watched their faces twitch when I took the seat at the head of the table. Dean leaned over to the guy next to him and muttered something. Then out loud, with his usual smirk, he barked, "This is a private meeting." "You might be lost, sweetheart." I didn't flinch. I placed my laptop on the table and opened my file. "My name is Aaron James," I said, voice calm but firm. "Founder and majority owner of Urban Loop Logistics." The room fell dead silent. Jenna blinked like I'd just started speaking Greek. Aunt Lila looked like someone had slapped her drink out of her hand. Dean leaned back slowly, his face frozen. "No," he said quietly. Yes, I said. And I'd like to begin with today's agenda, an internal review of all active vendor contracts. I clicked the remote. The screen behind me lit up. Slide 1, Contract Irregularities. Dean Holdings, LLC. This firm, I said, has been charging inflated rates, duplicating stops, and falsifying route reports across 3 counties. Our audit team found discrepancies totaling $486,000 over the last fiscal year alone. Dean stood up, red in the face. This is bullshit. It's math, I replied. We verified everything. You're destroying us, your own family. No, I said, standing. You did that when you used my mom's death as a tax write-off. When you bought a lake house with money meant to fund her care. Gasps around the table. Jenna's face went white. That's not true, Dean muttered, but he didn't sound sure. I clicked again. Slide 2, Payment Memo, Dean's personal account linked to vendor funds. He stumbled backward into his chair. My hands were steady. My heart was not. I could feel it pounding in my throat, but I didn't stop. Urban Loop will be terminating all contracts with Dean Holdings immediately, I said. We'll also be notifying the board of potential legal implications. And I paused, letting the next words drop like a hammer. I've already filed a formal complaint with the Department of Labor and the IRS. Dean's voice cracked. You're doing this to me? No, I said. I'm doing this for her. I pulled out a folded piece of paper from my bag. It was a note, handwritten, faded, my mom's handwriting, the one thing I'd kept from her purse after she passed. It said, "Don't ever let them tell you your work is small. You're building something they can't even imagine." I looked up. You all laughed at me for delivering packages. But while you were playing Empire, I was building one. For a second, no one moved. You could hear the AC kick on in the corner, the only sound in the whole damn room. Then Jenna spoke. You really live in that tiny apartment near the train tracks? I looked at her, straight on. I own the building, I said, and the distribution center across the street. And as of last week, I clicked again. Final slide. Urban Loop acquires controlling share in Apex Freight, Dean's parent company. Dean made a noise I'd never heard before. A strangled, hoarse gasp like the wind had been punched out of him. Aunt Lila's wine glass tipped. Someone in the back whispered, "Holy shit." I closed the file, tucked the letter back in my coat pocket, and looked across the table. Let me be clear, I said. This isn't revenge, it's accountability. I grabbed my bag, nodded once, and walked out. But just before the door shut behind me, I heard Jenna whisper. She was never just a driver. For years, I swallowed every insult, every smirk, every, "You should really do something with your life," from people who thought being loud meant being right. Not anymore. After the boardroom reveal, things moved fast. Too fast for Dean to catch his balance. His face at that meeting, equal parts confusion and fear, haunted me for a while, but not in the way you'd expect. It didn't feel good. Not yet. It felt unfinished. Like pulling the curtain halfway open. I didn't want revenge just to watch them burn. I wanted to rebuild the whole damn system they used to prop themselves up, using real work and real people, not loopholes and family names. So I got to work. The day after the meeting, I sat down with my legal team. We freeze everything tied to Dean Holdings, all contracts, all payments. I want a full audit on where every dollar went. They didn't blink. They'd seen enough shady documents already. Then I walked into our operations team. Redirect our rural routes to partner firms. Let our drivers know why. We don't hide from hard conversations. Dean underpaid and overcharged. We don't stand for that. And just like that, Urban Loop kept moving, without them. Of course, Dean didn't go quiet. He showed up to my office 2 days later. Yes, physically came to my damn office. In a pressed blue polo and cologne so strong it gave me a headache. Security called ahead, but I let him up. I wanted to see his eyes when I said what needed to be said. He walked in like he still owned the air in the room. "Aaron," he started, all fake concern. "What's happening is a misunderstanding. These contracts, this freeze, it's hurting both of us." I didn't even offer him a seat. "Your wife's company padded nearly $500,000 in false invoices," I said. "You want to talk hurt?" He had the nerve to look offended. "You're talking about ruining livelihoods." I stepped closer. "Yeah, mine, and my mother's. When you let her die knowing you had money that could have helped." He flinched. A real one. Not the theatrical kind. For once, he didn't have a comeback. "I'm not here to argue, Dean," I said. "I'm here to tell you that your empire is done. The contracts are void. Your name's flagged in our internal compliance system. You don't work with us now, or ever again." He opened his mouth to respond, but I cut him off. "And before you threaten lawsuits, don't bother. We've already submitted our audit findings to the state and federal departments. If you want to keep a shred of reputation, walk out of here and get your house in order." He left. Not with a bang, but with slumped shoulders, fake confidence cracked down the middle. But that wasn't the twist. That wasn't even close. Because 2 weeks later, Urban Loop closed a deal we'd been quietly working on for months. A public-private partnership with the state to handle rural food distribution for low-income families. That was a $20 million contract. One Dean's wife's company had been this close to winning, before the audit took them out of the running. They didn't know I was in the running too. I made sure they didn't. So imagine their faces when the press release hit. Urban Loop Logistics, a woman-founded delivery infrastructure company, has been awarded the largest social logistics contract in state history. My phone blew up. Jenna called. Twice. Dean emailed. Aunt Lila sent a damn fruit basket. But the one message that landed hardest? A voicemail from Dean. He sounded broken. Not angry, just tired. "I don't know how you did it. I guess we were all wrong about you. I hope you're happy now." I deleted the message. Because I wasn't happy. Not yet. But I was finally respected. And that felt better than any apology. 6 months after everything blew up, I stood on a makeshift stage at our new community distribution center in Stockton. Folding chairs lined the parking lot. Kids chased balloons between pallets of canned food and fresh produce. A mural of smiling elders covered the wall behind me, painted by local artists, paid in full. This wasn't a gala. No ribbon-cutting nonsense. Just real people, real families, and a logistics system built to serve them instead of squeeze them. And I was finally ready to say something. Not to the press. To them. I gripped the mic with one hand and shoved my other deep in my coat pocket, where my mom's old note still lived. "Some of you know my story," I said. "Some of you don't. But here's the truth. I was once told I was a disgrace. A waste. Just a girl in a delivery uniform who didn't know her place." The crowd was quiet. A breeze cut across the lot. And while they said that, I kept going. I showed up every day. I drove through rain, wildfire smoke, and the worst kinds of traffic. Not just because I had to, but because I knew I could build something that mattered. I looked out at the audience. Faces weathered by life, softened by kindness. This isn't about revenge. This is about respect, and making sure no one else gets stepped on because they didn't fit the mold. They clapped. Not the polite kind. The kind that lands in your chest and stays there. A week later, Dean's wife was indicted on charges of fraud and tax evasion. The documents we submitted to the IRS? Yeah, those were enough to trigger a deeper investigation. Dean's logistics firm collapsed within a month. His lake house was sold off to cover legal fees. He disappeared from the industry altogether. I don't know where he is now. Honestly, I don't care. Because the last time I saw him, he wasn't the man who used to humiliate me across the dinner table. He was just a tired, sunken version of that man, finally staring down the weight of what he built and who he hurt. And for once, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel angry. I just felt done. I still live in the apartment near the train tracks. Not because I have to, because I want to. I still drive sometimes, only when I feel like reconnecting with the roads that raised me. And I still keep my mom's note in my pocket, every time I walk into a meeting. Every time I sit across from someone who doubts me based on my clothes, or my tone, or the silence I've kept for years. Because I know who I am now. Not just the girl in the uniform. I'm the one who rewrote the whole damn playbook. If I've learned anything, it's this. Sometimes the best kind of justice doesn't come in a courtroom. It comes in the quiet power of not backing down, of doing the work day after day while no one's watching. Success doesn't need a spotlight. It just needs to be real. If any part of my story felt familiar, if you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or talked down to, drop a comment. I'd love to hear what you've built in silence, what you've carried alone while they laughed. And if you want to stay for more stories like this, about resilience, grit, and quiet victories, stick around. I've got more to tell. But for now, I just want to say thanks. For listening. For seeing me. For staying till the end. Some stories roar. Mine just showed up, box by box, until there was no denying it was real.